Okay, so we're finishing off another Makos in a minute, but I'll tell you two nice thoughts on this week's Edra, around this week's Edra. Ramesh Shapiro says it'd be quite funny on Parshas Kisisa. As I was thinking through his sefer, it caught my attention. So the beginning of Parshas Kisisa, the Torah says when you count the Bnei Yisrael, below you negef b'fnei Yisrael, there shouldn't be any plague, any accidents in Klal Yisrael, and therefore this is what they should give. So he says al derech halot. So he said, we know the Mishnah says in Yuma, the Kohanim for the Trumas Hadeshin, that's the first job early in the morning. It was whoever got up first and got there first could do the Trumas Hadeshin, and it got quite competitive. And there was a couple of Kohanim running up the ramp, and one was about to get to the finishing line first, and his friend pushed him off the ramp, and he broke his leg. So when the Chachamim saw it was dangerous, they made a go, or they made one of the paises out of it. So Ramesh Shapiro said there's a big problem now in the mitzvah of counting Klal Yisrael, because if the Yidden would have been told the mitzvah to be counted, they would have stampeded round to Moshe Rabbeinu's tent to fulfill the mitzvah, and people would have got trampled on, people would have got hurt. So Kodesh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, he said, this is how to... If you want to stop the stampede, tell everybody you've got to pay half a shekel to be counted. He said, if they have to pay, they'll come slowly. They won't come quickly. Okay, that's what Ramesh Shapiro said. Right? I don't think much has changed. I think, when the tickets are free, everyone's there. When you have to pay, a little bit slower. Anyway, this week's Edra, he says something very interesting. He said in Parshas Pekudei, Moshe Rabbeinu had to produce the accounts for the Mishkan. Exactly what was collected and where it was allocated to. What was the reason? Because he couldn't work out where he'd put 1,700 shekel. He couldn't work it out. So you never made a calculation, added it all up. People were questioning. There was a Vad Chakira. There was a public inquiry. Where are these 1,700 shekel? So he adds it all up, and then he realised he put the 300,000 shekel to the sockets, and the other 1,700 went on the pegs. That was used for the pegs. And everyone was happy, the accounts tallied, and everybody was okay. So Ramesh Shapiro, hold on a minute. You find a fundraiser who hands over 300,000 and keeps 1,700 as a commission. That's quite a good fundraiser, huh? Yeah? Is it better than charity? I don't know what they take, yeah? 1,700 shekel out of 300,000, 301,000 is not a bad commission for the cause. And yet they're up in arms. Where are those 1,700 shekel? He said the Egel, where it says, Vayisporku kol ha'omes nizmehem. There was 200 or 300 kilo of gold. And Aaron put it in a sack, and out came a little calf. He said, nobody asked Aaron, Aaron, take 10%, 20%. Where's all the gold gone? So he said, that's the mazel of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara, he said, nobody asked any questions who's embezzled, no one cares. When it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, comes to the Mishkan, then people are up in arms. Whereas Amos Sorotsky said something very beautiful. He said, there's a very good reason for it. He said, if the Yetzer Hara gets the better of a Yid, and he gives to a cause which he shouldn't have contributed to, so afterwards he feels bad that he gave it. And when he finds out that they embezzled 70%, he said, Baruch Hashem, only 30% went to a bad cause. He doesn't mind if he gets it all embezzled. But when you give to a Mishkan, he wants every penny to go to the Mishkan. So even 1,700 shekel out of 300,000 shekel, I want every penny to go to the Mishkan. Therefore they wanted the accounts to see that every penny had indeed gone to the good cause they wanted to. That's how Amos Sorotsky explains it. Alright, that's something for this week's Edra. Now let's go back to the Makos. So we mentioned, right, that we're searching for the Nisim and the Niflos which happened with each one of the Makos, and also how different Avodah Zarahs were knocked out with every Makkah, because Baruch was destroying some and eventually all of the Avodah Zarahs of Mitzrayim. So with Dever, so we mentioned yesterday, because they made the Yidden their farmers and their shepherds, so therefore all their farm animals died. And again, it totally differentiates between the Mikneh, the Hifla Hashem Be Mikneh Yisrael Be Mikneh Mitzrayim. Not one animal belonging to a Jew died. And also Chazal say nothing broke. In that time of the Devas, this is not clear how long it was for, Nothing broke, no windows broke, there were no accidents, because when you smash an item, that is effectively the death of the item. And it says, so nothing broke or died from Klal Yisrael. So the question is now, what avodah zaras were knocked out with Deva? So he brings here, he said, the Egyptians worshipped many animals and many animal-headed avodah zaras. Very interesting. He says, all Egyptians use bulls and bull calves for sacrifice if they pass the test for cleanliness. But they are forbidden to offer up heifers on the ground that they are sacred to the avodah zarah, believe it or not, called Isis. Can you imagine that? It's the Shem avodah zarah going back 3,500 years. Now, they had a special bull which they worshipped, which they found these images. And it's quite funny this, how they actually worshipped it. They took it so seriously. Listen to this. The Egyptian priests had to find a special black bull, one that had a white triangle on its forehead with the hair of its tail divided into two separate strands. This was associated with another avodah zarah where he borrowed it, and that disc of this other avodah zarah was put between the horns of the bull. When this bull died, the priests would travel throughout every pasture in Egypt looking for his replacement. Supposedly this bull had the power of prophecy, and when it died, the land of Egypt mourned for him as they would for the loss of the monarch himself. After the death of this cow, or this bull, his body would be embalmed, and after the funeral rites were performed, the body would be placed in a granite sarcophagus. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sarcophagus.
Yeah, sarcophagus. Now, obviously, since all livestock in Mitzrayim died, if any of these bulls would have been alive at the time, of course, it would have died in the plague. Then there were two of the avodah zarahs connected to, one with a ram's head, and one with the head of an ox as well. So these as well would have all been perished and shown to be powerless with the Makkah of Deva. So again, the Torah points out the distinction between Klal Yisrael and the Egyptians. Paro tested this out and found it was true. And he says very interestingly, why does the Torah stress no cattle of the Klal Yisrael died? He said at the time, the Yidden in Goshen, that would have been their main livestock. That would have been their main source of, it says here, the Yidden were pastoral people. If their cattle would have died, it would have financially ruined them. And this distinction between how the Mitzrayim died and the Klal Yisrael didn't, he said, impacted and hardened Paro's heart even more. Okay, now we move on to Shechin. Now boils, this is I suppose a doctor's delight. Skin conditions, yeah? Boils and things. And here the Torah says 3 miracles happened, just literally to get it off the ground. And again, this is number 6, and there's no warning to Paro. So the Pasuk says as follows. Hashem says to Moshe and fill your handfuls with piach kivshon. Now piach kivshon, we translate it as ash or soot from a furnace. Now it's rather hot. If you put your hands in the furnace, I imagine it's probably pretty hot. So did Moshe Rabbeinu bring a bucket load of it with him into Paro's palace? It's not clear. It's not clear exactly where he got it from. Or did he go to there's probably some big fireplace in Paro's throne room and literally put his hands in and say, here Aaron, you take 2. And he took it. It's not clear. It's not clear exactly where he got it from. He should throw it upwards. Now, the first miracle was 2 handfuls of Aaron and 2 handfuls of Moshe fitted together in Moshe's 2 hands. So there's no the concept of volume wasn't there. Okay, double fitted into one thing. Number 2, if you want to throw something far, you do 2 hands. You throw 1 hand. Yeah, in cricket, you throw 1 hand into the boundary. You don't throw with 2 hands. Okay, and the third thing is it's very light. And Moshe Rabbeinu just goes like that, just tosses it up, and within seconds the whole of Mitzrayim is covered. The whole of Mitzrayim is covered. Now, what happened to it? This Avak went throughout the entire land of Mitzrayim, so it would have stopped at the border with Ethiopia and the border of Uganda down south. Now it's flying everywhere. This in seconds. Stops right there. Starts off as we translate it as boils. Poireach started sprouting out, getting bigger and bigger. If you look online, you see some really gruesome pictures of what boils can look like. Ababuos. Whether they were weeping, what's it called when it leaks? I don't know what it's called. Pus, yeah? So they did this exactly this. Now, here the Torah says something very, very interesting. mipnei hashechin. The chatzumim couldn't stand there anymore because of the shechin. Ki haya hashechin b'chatzumim u'v'chol Mitzrayim. Why did the Torah stress it? Obviously, if it's everyone in Egypt, the chatzumim would get it. But the chatzumim, we mentioned, had very, very beautiful skin, very, very clean skin. They were completely bald-headed, and they had very, very clean bodies. So for them, all of a sudden, to come out with all these boils everywhere was particularly noticeable. Not only that, he brings the. If you look in the Teichach Devarim, it talks about boils being on the knees and on the feet, under the feet as well. So if you put boils under someone's feet, you can't stand there. So the words are literal. They couldn't even stand up in the presence of Moshe because the shechin was literally all over them. And again, Paro is not interested now. For the first time, this is number 6. So for the first time, Hashem hardens his heart. Paro really would have thrown the towel in now, but Hashem hardened his heart. And why? Because he only wanted to say go because he didn't want to get hit again. Not because he wanted to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's command, let my people go. And that's it, that's not acceptable. You've got to say go for the right reasons, not for a convenience for yourself. Now listen to this. He said, this plague was unannounced and it hit the Egyptians with a vengeance. He said, in all likelihood, Moshe and Aaron carried a bucket or some other container with the soot when they stood before Pharaoh. Now, these boils break out in sores, are later described in Devarim as a disease accompanied with tumours, with scab and with itch, which is what they do. Now he suggests, I don't know this,